got part of the wheel arch that I've cut out here. When you look at the rot is, you can see there that there's a bit of sort of bubbling there, and you've got bubbling here, bit of rust protection, bit of primer, bit of paint, and it'll be fine. But in reality, it's probably not the wisest thing to do, because when you flip it over around the back, obviously you could see that if you had a look, but this section here, which is inside, you wouldn't even be able to see in there. But look at the state of it. You know, it's just rust everywhere. So you would have found that it would have just come back in no time at all. There's an awful lot more going on where there's a bit of bubbling rust. I'm just glad that that's what I'm doing, that I've ripped this out and I'm replacing it, because looking at the bit of corrosion that's here, this would have just blown out from around this area if I had just been tempted to just touch this up, and it would have just rotted away. So I've been cutting out all of the sill area on the bus. Turned out to be a bit nastier than I thought. I've actually managed to remove it all now. It's taken me a couple of weeks to grind it away because I didn't really want to remove the floor. So without removing the floor, you can see I've started to remove the sill there. And I've also removed the wheel arch here. So this wheel arch, I have another version of the wheel arch there, which I have started to fit up. That's just a bit of rust remover there. I'll grind that out in a bit. I can just about get the wheel arch to fit in. It's awkward, but it does go in. It's going to take a bit of letting in to get that to work. And then there's the sill area here, which I've got this all cleaned up, as you can see, all along there. It's savable. I've also had to cut out these two legs from the floor supports because they were blocking my way for getting at this. I couldn't get at this properly. Yeah, so that I'm kind of pleased the way that's turned out. It's cleaned up well. I've done a bit of grinding and sanding and so on with it. I'm going to use some phosphoric acid on it. Get that on there and then get it cleaned up afterwards. That should be good. Right, you can see there we've got the piece that makes up the panel. So I've just clipped it on in some small places. So that's the inner sill. It fits amazingly well. It's completely sculpted to the floor sort of shape. And it actually fits, which surprised me. I thought there'd be a lot more work than that. Yeah, you can see there it fits quite well. It's down the side there, so that'll plug weld in. Whether or not I'll do that from above or below, I could plug weld it from below because I'm not too bad at welding buns upside down. It would work easier from above. And then there's that piece that goes on at the end there. Got to make a piece that comes down here, and probably a separate piece that comes down there. I'll fabricate them up, weld them and grind them up. This just needs cutting a bit shorter there really, but I have cut this out here. Cut too much of that out really, shouldn't have taken as much out as I have. You could always use the black stuff, POR 15 on there, which is anti-rust, but it dries a bit brittle, so I don't know. This will be the weld through primer on there, and where that touches will also be weld through primer to a certain distance away because of the heat. I don't want to be too affected. And the same I'll do on here. I'll have to clean this up a lot more first. That was tricky. Getting this wheel arch out was tricky. It's not the easiest job to do, and to get one in whole, especially after I rebuild all this. This might not. This is going to be quite a fitting job, especially seeing as this point here now, where this all comes down to and finishes. I don't really have any more. It's going to be dictated by this. I've got to hope that this is accurate enough. We're moving on. Starting to get there. It's all coming on. And I must admit, this extra light I've got in the garage is helping me a lot. I can actually see what I'm doing. I've made a template and I've cut out a piece to fill in this area here. So you see where I've had to cut this because it all had rotted away just down here. So I templated this, then cut it out. It's just a flat piece, so it was easy enough. It just happened to stick up a bit there, so I've got to weld that in there. Weld that in along there. I'll do that now. Do a bit of a time lapse of that. And after I've done that, then I'll put this piece in. This one's a little bit more tricky, there's a little bit more curvature there, so I'll have to form that in. But nothing we can't do. Then, once we've got the sill in place, or the inner sill, we'll start to work this inner B pillar and the outer pieces here. Get that in, but this needs to be done first. Got to get that done first before I can start doing that there. So I'll weld that up now. So I've got that welded up down there now, so just sort of done all the plug welds, which replicate a spot weld, welded all this in as well. I'll grind that back now. There'll probably be, looks like there might be a bit of a hole just there, so I'll go back over that and sort it out. And once that's all ground up, that'll be fine. I do have a little bit of a, there's actually a hole in the chassis there. There's meant to be a hole in the chassis there, so that was all filled up with weld seam sealer, so I'll go back over that with weld seam sealer, that'll be good. And I'll make this piece next. That's all welded in and ground back. I now need to make this piece here, so I'll do that next. Shouldn't be, well, I say it shouldn't be too difficult, but it does actually have this curvature here, so I'll have to knock that around with the dolly slightly, just to make sure that fits okay. And once I've got this piece in, then I can start building up this whole area here. To fit in there, I had to hammer around this part here, and just to dot on a curved edge. Worked out quite well. Fits quite well. Put it up. You can see there. Fits in. Quite nice actually. I've cut that little piece out at the bottom of the C pillar now, the bit that was all rotten, and there's nothing left of it to get a pattern from, but there was enough there to create a pattern, so have a look. So there you can see that's where it was, so it's now gone. So that's all gone, and sat there. So I did have enough with this piece to work out where it came down to. So what I did when I was creating the pattern piece, I used a piece of steel that I put across the top of it, just to create that curvature there, and then that allowed me to create this piece there that will fit in there, like that. And that's pretty good, that, to be honest with you. So I've made this by just pieces together. Haven't folded anything except for the curvature on the outside because it's pretty much a press part. As you can see, there's a weld on the inside which I've ground back. Not fully, because nobody's really going to see this though. I've not gone too mad. But yeah, it's weld and grind, and then you create the part that way. And it has actually come out really quite well. Quite pleased with that. So I just have to fit that up and weld it into place. And I've got the inner skin in for the sill there, and I've just put this is the lower sill that goes on the bottom of the outer panel there. Let's put that into place as well to make sure that that it all fits up together, which it does. It's come out really nicely. I have had to do a lot of cutting and grinding to get that to work though. I'll weld that into place, and once that's welded into place, that actually then means I can then put those end pieces into place. Once they're in place, I can probably start looking at attaching this sill, and then also the end there, the pieces I've done at the end there. I've welded those ones that I fabricated, the bottom of the C-pillar and then also the bottom of the rear wing. So here you can see what I've done there. So there's the bottom of the C-pillar, which is the piece I've fabricated. So I've welded all this in, done a little stop frame animation of that so you can see what's gone on. And then also the bottom of the wheel tub there as well, that's welded in now. I'm hoping this is going to fit with the actual outer wheel arch when that goes in. It does go in further than the previous one did, so I think it should be okay. And then this I have shaped so that it works to the bottom of the sill here, the inner sill, which I'll put it on the flange there. So it's all welded up around there now. And then of this inner sill flange, you can see here it's still got clamps in place. I've used Clecos to hold it in place, which has done very well for me actually. So next thing I need to do with this is I need this holding in place at the other end there. I need to weld this inner sill in now. To do that, I think I'm going to have to probably drill from the top and plug weld, which is a bit difficult because I just need to make sure that where the inner sill is where I'm going to drill through above. You know, if you look from underneath, I've got to get the centre line in the right place. So I'll just show you what I mean. That's all right, underneath. So I've got to get that all in the right place, basically. I've also put a coat of POR 15 on where there was a bit of surface rust, but I've removed the surface rust with phosphoric acid and got it back to bare metal. I do need to remove the rest of the under seal on this, but that's a job for another day really. And I've also welded in new ends on the end there of the legs, but you can see there's a weld on both of them. They have to come out to be able to get in there. And then we've got this part here where I've now got this to the stage where I'm going to start welding up the pieces I've got to fabricate there, but I need this inner sill to be held in place before I can do that. So its kind of position dictates a lot of things. So once that's in place, I can then proceed to put this all in. Well, that wraps up this video for this week. Just me plug welding that inner sill that's taken me weeks to do. Next time you'll be able to join me for finishing off the wheel arch and the parts that go in that area there, which hopefully we should be able to wrap up in a one-up. We'll see you then. Bye.